Oh, hey, it's that time of the year again, guys. I can't believe that we're already here. I really feel like I just did this, but you know what? We're back here again. Merry Christmas, guys. I think it's Christmas around the time when I uploaded this, so Merry Christmas to all of you. Hope you guys are having wonderful holidays and all that kind of stuff. And you know what? I'm back where I was last year. I got my Rick and Morty holiday sweater again. I got a Santa hat this time around. I'm very festive, and you know what that means. Because of that, we are doing yet another Christmas catch-up review because I really like the way this turned out last year. I figured there's double the amount of movies that I talked about. There was a lot of Christmas films that were released, and I figured I might as well just compile it all into one video. Mine is Happiest Season, of course, because I've already reviewed that one, but all of the other 8 films that were released in 2020, meaning the major ones, I will be covering in this video. Shouldn't be too long. I don't have a ton to say about all these movies. Some of them I do, but for the most part, I don't have a ton to say about them. We're just going to dive into it right now. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So get cozy, get festive, whatever you got to do. But I don't know. I don't have anything clever to say. Let's get to the first movie. Alright, so similar to last year, what I'm going to end up doing is since the majority of these are Netflix films, all the non-Netflix ones we're going to cover first. So the first one we're going to talk about here is Fat Man, and this one I was really, really excited for. I thought this looked like a lot of fun, and I'm very happy to say that it very much is. This is not just, though, a so bad it's good movie. I think it's generally a very clever film. I mean, Mel Gibson as Santa sounds really dumb. It sounds like something that really wouldn't work, but you know what? He gives a really strong performance here, and it really works. This is a Santa that, yes, is not the Santa that we know, but it's because of the fact that he's so sort of nihilistic. He's grown very jaded of, what's happened to him. The kids are not respecting him in the way that they used to. He doesn't feel like they have the spirit that they once did, and so it really does work in that way. And I think he actually does do a really good job in playing this character, this more gruff and just very run down and aging Santa. I think really does work in this movie, but he's not even the best part of it. The best part of this movie, hands down, is Walton Goggins, who, this is just the kind of role that I love that he does. He's so unhinged and badass, and he never really takes it too seriously, and I really did appreciate that. But they also try to give him a bit of a character. He has his own reason to go after Santa, and I think the film does do a really good job with that, but I also thought the film was generally very clever with the way it went about this whole storyline. I mean, the kid in this film is very obviously supposed to be a Trumpian sort of kid, this very white privileged guy, this white privileged kid who is so upset over the most trivial things, something as simple as him not winning first in a science project and him just getting seconds. He literally wants to go after this girl because of it. You think maybe he's gonna do something to her, but no, he just kind of very sternly talks her down. So this is the kind of guy that we're really dealing with in this movie. And again, I think the kid in the film actually was really good because he recognizes that this kid is a piece of shit. I mean, he is just such an asshole throughout this entire movie. The lengths that he's willing to go to get his way, I mean, it's just, he's so relentless in that way, and I think the film does a really good job with that. So I think all that stuff is very creative. Even the way they go about certain things with Santa, like him drinking, there's this scene of him drinking milk in a car, and the way that he goes about it I just thought was really funny. Or what they do with the naughty and nice list, or what they do with him eating cookies. I mean, there's so many creative things in this movie, and I think they do a really good job with that. Really, my only flaws with this film, I would say, is that there is definitely more to Santa's character that we're not really seeing. There's many parts of this film where he's battered and bruised, and we never really get an explanation of why. It just seems like he gets into a lot of fights, and we don't really know what that's all about. I also did feel that there was a story for the kid character with his father that really feels very underwritten. They keep coming back to it, and every time they did, I forgot it was a part of the film. That's how little they really focused on it here. And again, Billy as a character, I could give less of a shit about. He's so spoiled in that way, but I think it maybe would have added a few extra layers to to his character, maybe even play into the satire aspect a little bit more of like why he really is that way, and I think they could have done a better job with that. Also, Mrs. Claus as a character, Mary Jean Baptiste, I just wasn't really feeling her in this role. I thought she did an all right job, but I didn't really feel the chemistry between her and Mel Gibson. I didn't really feel like it was there in this film. But other than that, I think this film definitely does deliver. Yes, it's a little bit more of a slow burn than you're expecting. It actually does take a while to get to that main sort of confrontation, but once it gets there, it very much delivers, and oh my god, does it get gory. I mean, this is the kind of Christmas film that if you want something really wacky and out there, I think Fat Man is definitely going to surprise a lot of people. I went into this thinking it was going to be really dumb, but it honestly is a lot of fun, and I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected to. So yeah, I honestly would recommend this one. B for Fat Man. Definitely a really fun movie. So, similar to last year, Godmothered is the Disney Plus Christmas film of the year. The difference is, while Noelle was a film that surprised me, Godmother did not surprise me at all. This is everything that I expected it to be, and unfortunately, it just feels like one of those kinds of Disney Plus films that they're just kind of dumping onto here because they need content, and that's always such a shame. And here's the thing with Godmothered. You know, I talked about in my movie preview how this is a ripoff of Elf and Enchanted. I wouldn't really say it is. It clearly is trying to do something different. The problem is it does it in such a poor way that I think you're just going to find yourself constantly comparing it to those other films that just admittedly did this stuff a lot better. And I think that's something that is going to annoy a lot of people. Easily, though, I mean, there's so many things that bother me about this film, but easily the biggest misstep, I would say, is Jillian Bell is just really miscast here. She's very annoying. She's not very convincing in this role at all. It's hard to understand what her character's real motivation is because on one hand, it seems like she's like this incompetent sort of fairy, but then on the other hand, it seems like she's the only one that, like, cares about what's still going on. They keep talking, like, they talk about early on in the movie how, like, nobody really cares much about, like, the teachings anymore, and so she does. So, like, why is she so, like, bad at what she does? I really don't know. It really does not make a lot of sense. But what also doesn't make a lot of sense is her actual mission in the film involving Isla Fisher's character, who's not bad in the movie. I actually thought Isla Fisher was doing a good job. It's just very unclear as to, like, what her mission really is here, because you would think it'd go in, like, an elf-type direction where she's grown very cynical and she's trying to get her to care again, but that's not really the direction they go in. Yes, she gets a little bit closer with her family, but it doesn't really feel like Jillian Bell had anything to do with that. It feels like she does it all on her own, and more so Jillian Bell's there to, like, help out her kids, but even at that, like, there isn't really enough there. Like, there's a really cliched subplot of how Isla Fisher's character, like, Isla Fisher's daughter, her oldest daughter, like, she's afraid to sing in public, and Jillian Bell tries to, like, help her come out of her shell a bit, but the way she does that is just by singing a song in a park, and then suddenly she's, like, okay with it, and that she, like, needs her guitar in order to, I don't know, it's dumb. It's very underwritten in that way, and I don't think they did a very good job. They also harp on Isla Fisher getting this makeover, but to be honest, I didn't notice any difference in her at all. I don't know what they were talking about when it came to this makeover, so that didn't really work for me either. There's obviously a very forced romance in there, which, you know, you expect to have in this kind of film, but just overall, there's just so many things that just don't really make sense here. The mythology itself as well, it's just not really well done. The world building is incredibly weak here, and I don't think they do a very strong job with that at all. Again, there are some ideas that I do like, and I do think there's some things that could have worked, but there's just so many things that don't. The visual effects also are just terrible here. I mean, you look at the visual effects, and they just look so cheap. They feel so half-assed in that way, and I don't think they do a very good job with that at all. There's so many things that I don't like about this movie. There's also this horrible narration by June Squibb in this film, which is just so annoying, but also feels so unnecessary. It feels like it's just here to pander to the audience and, like, let them understand things. It's literally the narration in this film is so unnecessary. There's literally moments where June Squibb is like, wow, look at Jillian Bell. She looks really sad right now. And it's like, I can fucking tell that she looks sad. I don't need you to tell me that. Like, I don't know what it's doing here. I don't understand what the point of it really is. You could honestly cut it out of the movie entirely, and I don't think the film would be any different. This just overall is such a cheaply made film. There's so many things that don't work here. The editing is also atrocious here. There's a lot of moments where it feels like they very easily should have spent more time editing the film. There's this really awkward moment where Isla Fisher's like walking, and then it cuts to like a shot of her running, and then she's walking again. It's really weird. I don't really know how to describe it, but this is just basically what I expected. It's a very cheaply made, very lazily put together Disney Plus film that really doesn't have much of a purpose, really doesn't have much of a point on here. It's not even really that good of a Christmas film. I don't know why they're promoting it as such, but I guess it is. I didn't think it was, but they say it is, so I guess I'm gonna, bring it in here. It's just a film that has so many things that it's done better before. The ending to this film as well is so fucking jarring, the way that it wraps things up. It feels like something that they only did because of the situation that we're in with the pandemic. They didn't have time to actually, film the scene, so they just went with what they did here. It's really strange. There's a lot of things that really piss me off about this movie. D+ for Godmothered. It's basically what I expected. Just, again, maybe some people will enjoy it, but for me, I just was very annoyed and very bored by how this film played out. I wasn't expecting much going in, and it pretty much was what I expected, unfortunately. So, Noelle, this is very much not. Don't watch this one. Alright, so now we'll get into the Netflix films here, starting off with the worst possible one we could start off with, and that's Holiday, which, holy shit, this film. I mean, there is so much that I hate about Holidays. The concept alone, I think, is really dumb. You have these two characters, one of which is in this really weird relationship where he has this girl that's, lavishing him with gifts, and because he's not giving her exactly what she wants, she's just going off on him, and so there's that. But then you also have Emma Roberts' character, who she's not necessarily looking for love. She hasn't found a relationship, and everyone else for some reason is appalled by it. They're like, oh my god, how dare you, why don't you have a boyfriend, why aren't you in a relationship? And it's it just let her be. I don't really understand why the films harp so much on her not having a boyfriend, because she doesn't seem particularly interested in the film. It's just her and Luke Bracey meet up and they decide, hey, people want me to have a boyfriend, so let's just buddy up, and they do. And that's pretty much all this really amounts to, and that's what really bothers me about this movie, is that aside from those characterizations, there's nothing else to this film. Sloane is just this very sort of sardonic and relatively annoying character that I just really didn't like much at all. She doesn't really change much throughout the movie, and Emma Roberts is not bad in the film. She's giving a decent performance, but I just really did not like her in this film. And then Luke Bracey, I mean, I can't think of a more unlikable sort of character than Jackson in this film. I mean, he's so rude towards her. There's so many moments in this film where it seems like he's just very rude to her. He doesn't really seem like he's very respectful towards her, and it's why would you even like this guy? So right off the bat, these two are not really clicking at all. But then, once they actually enter this relationship, all this film amounts to is just literally going through each and every single holiday you can think of and seeing the progression of their relationship. The progression, or the downfall, I should say, because it seems like these two are kind of better off without each other. But you know what? The film wants to convince me that they should be together, so fine, they should be together. There's also just a lot of subplots that feel very underwritten here. Kristen Chenoweth's character, as usual, she's very annoying here. I don't know what it is with Kristen Chenoweth and movies, but she never seems to do it for me, and that's definitely no different here. I did not like her in this film very much at all, but she has this subplot with this other guy, and it feels so underwritten. Like she's supposed to be the person that like presents the idea of holidays to Sloane, and it feels like she should have a much more like major role in this than she does, and it doesn't really work much at all. Frances Fisher, I especially couldn't stand in this film, which is surprising me because I really liked her in Watchmen last year, but here I just thought she was so just over the top and just being that very like overbearing mother that you see in like half a dozen other films, and we've seen it done better before. There's a lot of jokes here that just really don't work. There's this one scene with Sloane, and it involves poop, and it was really disgusting, and it's like the movie seems to think that just because it's poop that's funny, and that's not the case at all. There's a lot of just crude and gross out humor that just did not do it for me here. There's just a lot of things I hated about Holiday overall. This was just a very unpleasant and really obnoxious film that I very much did not enjoy much at all. It went in such a predictable direction. It focuses on such unlikable characters throughout, and I just, for the life of me, could not stand this film. Definite D for Holidays. I mean, maybe some people will enjoy it. I know some people that did enjoy it, but for me, I just really was annoyed with this one throughout. Operation Christmas Drop, I really don't have much to say about. This is the generic sort of Hallmarky type Netflix film that we tend to get every single year, and there's really nothing that different about it. I mean, I will say the actual plot is one that is definitely very important. It's shedding light on something that happens every single year that I really didn't know much about, where like Marines and people in the military, like they're given they're giving gifts and they're given food as a way to sort of, celebrate and have, take some time off from what they're doing and celebrate Christmas. And I think that's a really nice plot line. I just think that the story going on here is so utterly boring. I mean, you could not have picked a more boring story here, especially our main character, Cat Graham. Cat Graham's character, there's nothing to her in this film. There's absolutely nothing to her. She's just like someone that is associated with this whole thing, and she feels a certain way about, Alexander Ludwig's character, and she thinks that he's like, someone that's very like selfish and things like that, and then she starts to like him, and that's literally it. And then Alexander Ludwig is just, he seems kind of cocky, but he turns himself around and he becomes a good guy, and Cat Graham becomes less uptight throughout the film. Like, we've seen this 1,000 times before. There's not really anything different here at all. I guess the two of them have okay chemistry. Like, I don't think the chemistry wasn't there, so like there's that at least. Virginia Madsen's character as well, I couldn't stand here either. She's just like the angry congresswoman that like doesn't really see the good in what's happening and like wants to shut down this whole operation, but like they're trying to keep it going. You know the direction she's gonna go, and there really isn't much to say about this one. It just seems like a film that we get every single year and really just bored me. The best way to put this film is if you need like a background film to watch, I feel like Operation Christmas Drop is a good one. It's a film that I really did not care much about at all. I knew exactly where it was going to go. There was nothing in this film that really shocked me. I wasn't necessarily like hating it or anything, but it's just a film that did absolutely nothing for me. The acting is nothing special. The directing is nothing special. It's just really kind of a nothing movie, and there just really isn't much to say about it. And like I said, Operation Christmas Drop, like the actual tradition, is very important. It is one that I think more people should know about it. I mean, it's happened since 1952, but there is a much better film that you can make, surrounding it than what we get here. This is the most basic cookie cutter fucking film that you could possibly get. There really isn't much to say about this one. C- for Operation Christmas Drop. I really just don't have much to say about this film. Don't watch this one. It's like, if you like Hallmark films, go for it, but like, if you don't think you're gonna like it, just don't watch it. It's not very good. Oh, Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey. Out of all the films that I am reviewing here, this is easily the one I am most frustrating, because I will just tell you guys right now, none of these films I like. Like, none of the Netflix Christmas films this year really won me over in any way, but Jingle Jangle is the one that just came so close to me liking. There are so many things that I want to like here, and I will just say right off the bat, everything concerning the musical numbers in this film are spectacular. These are some of the most well put together, catchy, and just elaborate musical numbers that I have seen in a very long time. They're very memorable, they're very entertaining, they're very catchy. They do a really good job, I think, of just eliciting so many emotions out of you. Every single song I legitimately think is a winner. I've been listening to the soundtrack a lot. I've gone back and watched many of the performances, like, since seeing this movie, and I just think everything musical number-wise is spectacular here, and really feels like, you know, we haven't gotten a lot of theater this year, a lot of Broadway. It kind of reminds me of what I love so much about Broadway and about musical theater. But again, the key word is Broadway. And the reason I say that is because as a film, aside from the musical numbers, this film just fundamentally does not really work for me. The story in this film is one that isn't that bad. I do like the story itself, where you focus on this guy Geronicus, who, you know, he once was seen as like the top dog. He was the one that was the big toy maker. You know, everyone wanted to come to his toy shop. Everyone wanted toys from him. It seemed like he was on the brink of something groundbreaking in that way, but it got stolen from him from Keegan-Michael Key's character, and he's become very reclusive, he's become very sullen as a result, and again, I think that's a good plot line. I don't have a problem with that at all. What I do have a problem with is the way this film decides to execute. Everything that's done in this film, story-wise, is just done in such a ham-fisted and very shortened manner, and it just really doesn't work very much at all, and it really just became one of those films where I just couldn't wait for them to get to the next musical number, because the story just was not really doing it for me here. And again, there are things that really do work. I think all the acting in this film, most of it is really good. Forrest Whitaker gives one of his best performances that I've seen in quite a bit. Madeline Mills, I thought, was a really great newcomer. I enjoyed her a lot in this movie. A really strong child performance from her. I hope that we're able to see her again, because I think she gives a very strong performance in this film. But oh my god, Keegan-Michael Key is the big standout of this entire film for me. I fucking love him in this movie. He is just embracing the goofiness of this character. He is so campy and over the top, and it just works in the best way possible. And you can just tell he's absolutely loving what he's doing in this film. And though he's not in it a lot, he just did so much for me in this role, and I really like what he did here, and I like the look of this film as well. It has a very unique sort of feel to it, and I think it really does work very well. So what fails with this film, again, is just the main conflict here. It's just not very well executed. I mean, the main two characters are supposed to be in, like, this decade-long feud, have barely any screen time in this film, and we really don't know much about the details of their relationship either. All we know is that Keegan-Michael Key's character wanted to be an inventor. He had this toy that, like, he wanted Geronicus's help with, but Geronicus told him to wait. He didn't want to wait, and because of that, now he's taken over, and that's really kind of it. We don't really know much else about that, and that just was not enough for me. And then you also have, you know, how Geronicus is someone that's lost his wife. He's separated from his daughter. His daughter doesn't speak to him and things like that. These are other things that we really should dive into, but it really isn't. It feels like there's a very brief mention of it. The film, everything is done in such a surface level. It kind of reminds me of what a lot of people thought of The Greatest Showman, which The Greatest Showman was enough for me in terms of its screenplay. Yes, it's not the best screenplay, but it did enough for me. This very much reminded me of that, where the songs are so good, but the story is just not really there, and I think that's what really just ultimately brings this film down. I think there's a lot of elements that don't really work. There's a lot of subplots as well that don't really go much of anywhere. There's this really weird character named Miss Johnston. She's this postwoman that seems to be infatuated by Geronicus. She's like sort of like seducing him throughout the entire film. It's really weird. I don't really know what she's doing here at all. I thought that was a very strange choice. There's also this character that I really just couldn't stand at all, all Edison. He, I thought, was terrible here. He's really just the other assistant of Geronicus, and he really got on my nerves. Not just because of the character, but I thought he was really the only person in this movie that just really couldn't act at all. I was not a fan of his performance here. It felt very much like a child performance, and especially when in scenes with Madeline Mills, who is actually really good in this movie, as I said, he just does not hold a candle to her very much at all. The film also is very tonally inconsistent. It doesn't seem to know if it wants to be more sophisticated and, you know, like more of an adult sort of musical, but then at times it tries to go more into very kiddie territory with this robot, and especially with Ricky Martin's character, who I did not like either. So again, this is just such a mixed bag for me of a film, and it's so unfortunate because those musical numbers are just amazing. I mean it when I say the movie is worth watching enough for the musical numbers. They are on another level in this movie, but honestly, when watching it, I just kind of came to the conclusion that maybe this just doesn't work as a film. As a Broadway show, I think this could really work. I think they have enough here to where if they expanded upon it a bit, add some more songs in there, you know, give a bit more time for the story to develop, I really think they have something here. But as a movie, it just really did not work for me at all. I found myself very bored with the story. I had a hard time latching onto really any of the characters, and I really wanted to like this so much, but unfortunately it just did not really get there for me. So a C+ for Jingle Jangle. I know I'm going on and on about it, but man, this film just had such massive potential, and there's so many things that do work about it, but the things that really matter just don't, and that's what ultimately brings it down for me. I think this definitely has a lot of fun moments, and it's definitely worth watching for the musical numbers, but as a story, I just needed a lot more, and it just was not there. Hopefully one day they decide to make it a musical, because I really do think it could work as like a Broadway show, but as it stands, this film just really did not work for me, unfortunately. Oh my god, where do I start with the Princess Switch switched again? Look, y'all remember, I fucking hated the first movie. I really hated it a lot. I thought it was so just corny and just over the top, and I thought the plot line was so stupid, and it just, I hated it so much, but switched, I mean, this film makes that film look like an amazing Netflix movie. It really does. It makes it look like an awards contender to compare to this, because wow, did this drop the bomb. I mean, just the plot line alone of these two characters deciding to switch again, the idea of them deciding to do that, thinking that it's going to work, that alone is really dumb, you know, and I understand that, like, they've gotten closer in this film and that they're really trying to, like, make an effort to, you know, make sure that they're both so happy, and you got Stacy just literally going out of her way to make sure that, like, Margaret and her former, you know, her best friend who liked her at one point, and probably still does have feelings for her, you know, should be together. But the big thing that doesn't work about that, especially, is the fact that, like, he did like her, and she's not really taking that into consideration. So, like, that already is really dumb. And the focus on Margaret in this film, you know, they make you think the film's really about her. It's not about her. It's really not about her. That's not what this film is about at all. What it is about is this new character. That's definitely, like, a part of it, but easily the biggest problem with this movie is that the third character that Vanessa Hudgens plays, the character of Fiona, holy shit, she is horrible here. I mean, they are just trying so hard to get a very, like, conniving and just very, like, almost Disney-esque villain in here. Like, this felt like a Disney Channel type villain. It did not work in any way. I don't know what they were really going for here with her. It really just felt like they didn't have enough conflict, so they just kind of, like, shoehorned that in here, and it just does not work. The second that she enters the movie, you're gonna be wishing that she's gone, and as much as I do like Vanessa Hudgens, and I do still think she does an alright job in those two roles, she's horrible in this this role. She's absolutely horrible. At no point is this convincing. At no point does it actually have any, at no point does it feel like its own character. It feels so cartoony and on a different level of bad, and just where Fiona ends up going, her whole scheme already is like ridiculous enough, but especially where they end up taking the character, it's just so dumb, and I hated it so much, and I just didn't understand what the point of this character really is, especially where they end up going with her towards the end of this film. It's really going to make you question, like, what was the point of her? Why did she need to be here? Why did she need to play such a major role in this movie? I just didn't really understand that at all. And to top that all off, the things that you do want to see are very much pushed to the wayside here. There's this really underwritten storyline with Stacy and Edward, how the two of them are kind of on the rocks in their relationship. They're not really communicating in the way that they should. That's not really delved into at all. It's just something that we hear about, and then, oh, it's just resolved, like, instantly. So that really doesn't work. The tone in this film is switching constantly. There are points of the film that is trying to be, like, really heartwarming, but then there's a part of the film that tries to be something a bit darker, and it never really fully goes for it, and it just never really works at all, and so that really didn't work for me. But then, again, just the way this whole film goes down, the screenplay is terrible. There's so many just horrible jokes within this film, none of which ever really work much at all, and so that definitely does bring it down. There's a lot of things I hate about this movie. I just think the prospect of a Princess Switch sequel is already really dumb. There was no reason for this film to really exist other than the fact that the first one was moderately successful and they decided that they wanted to do a second one, but it is very clear throughout this film that they just had no idea what they really wanted to do. And literally, I mean it when I say every single plot point in this film, it just feels so forced and so haphazardly written in that way, and it really just feels like something that they just kind of came up with as they went along. Nothing about this feels like something that they had planned. Nothing about this feels like something that they legitimately wanted to do. It all just feels so forced, and I couldn't stand it very much at all. And like I said, really my only thing that I think almost saves this film is Vanessa Hudgens' performance, but even at that, she's not nearly as good as she was in that first one because of how cliched and just one-dimensional Fiona really is as a character. I just couldn't stand her in this film. Look, we've had a lot of really bad sequels on Netflix this year, a lot of unnecessary ones, but this is without a doubt the worst one yet. I mean, nothing about this feels like something that should have come out. Nothing about this feels like it understands the first movie, and I already hate the first movie, but this made me be like, maybe I was a little too harsh towards that film, because this is just on a different level of bad for me. Easily one of the worst films of the year. Oh my god, I hate this film so much. Definite D- for The Princess Switched Again. I already was dreading this film a ton, but this was truly so much worse than I could have expected, and I hated really everything about this film. Dolly Parton's Christmas on the Square, to be honest with you, this is one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever seen, and it's very hard to put into words what exactly this is. I mean, the plot seems simple enough where you have Christine Baranski's character, and she is, like, really just down on her luck and doesn't want much to do with her town. She wants to shut down the town. She's evicting everyone, and she's, like, very adamant about doing this, and so nobody else likes her. You think it's going to go in, like, a Christmas Carol type direction, but that's not really what this film is trying to do at all. What it's trying to do, I don't really know. Look, the best way to describe this film is, while watching it, the entire film to me felt like this has to be a joke. Like, this is so dumb. This is so over the top. This is so just cringeworthy. It has to be a joke. Like, there's no way that this is actually serious. I mean, the film opens with this opening number that feels like something you would see in a Macy's commercial. It really did. I mean, the way that the characters were acting, it just felt so phony to me. There's so many moments in this that feel that way. Nothing about it feels genuine. Nothing about it feels like this could actually somewhat work. The songs as well are all so bottom of the barrel. None of them I found to be very very memorable. I didn't like really any of the songs in this movie, which was surprising to me. I thought at least there'd be one, but there wasn't a single song in this movie I ended up liking. And Dolly Parton is trying here. I will say that. Dolly Parton is definitely trying in this movie. She does give an alright performance, as does Christine Baranski. She for once didn't annoy me in this film, and that's surprising because I normally don't like her that much at all. And I do think there are some good ideas in this film, but literally every single one is just done in like the most hammiest way possible. I mean, everything just feels so superficial. Everything feels so forced, and it also just goes in some really weird directions that just don't really make any sense whatsoever, especially when it comes to the character of Felicity. She is basically Christine Baranski's like sort of assistant. She's like following her around. Dolly Parton has this song with her where she needs to like embrace her more and things like that, and it's really weird. And Dolly Parton's character as well, I don't know what she is. I guess she's supposed to be like a guardian angel, but yet there's multiple points in this movie where she is actively putting Christine Baranski in harm's way. There are at least 3 scenes in this movie where Christine Baranski is driving and Dolly Parton just shows the fuck up out of nowhere on like her windshield, and like it legitimately seemed like she was like trying to put her in an accident, so like that didn't really work either. There's this really weird character, little girl that like works in a bar, literally like her father when he's out on business, like she takes over his bar and is like serving them drinks. I thought it was gonna be like a dream sequence, but no, this is just something the characters accept. They're not really that like shocked by it or anything. This is just something that they do, and just, oh my god, this film is just so fucking weird. There's so many things in this film that just don't make any sort of sense to me, and just really just confounded me throughout. It's such a weird sort of experience. And then the twist in this movie is not necessarily a bad one. It's just one that, again, just feels so out of nowhere. It feels very unsatisfying. It's mainly because it just feels so rushed in that way, but it also just feels very melodramatic, and I just don't think it worked at all. And again, just so much of this film just feels like a joke. You think you're watching like an SNL skit, or you think you're watching like a parody of a musical. I heard some people say like this kind of feels like the musicals that like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend would poke fun at. It very much just feels that way, because it's so stupid that you think, oh, you know, this can't be serious. They can't actually be, like, legit here. They have to be joking around, right? No, they are taking this seriously, from what I understand, and it just doesn't really work ever. They also seem to think, regarding the musical numbers, that every single conversation needs to end in some sort of song, and because of that, so many of them end up feeling so unnecessary. I don't understand why there need to be, like, so many songs in this movie. There were easily moments that did not need one. There were easily moments that they could have cut out. I understand it's a musical, but like, most of the songs here are just so run-of-the-mill, and they just don't really need to be here, and I was not a fan of any of them. Some of them songs, like, there's like this church scene that goes on. There's at least like 3 songs just in that scene alone, and I didn't understand why. It just kind of kept going and going, and it wasn't gonna end, and I couldn't stand it in this movie. The choreography isn't even really that good. Again, acting's not terrible, aside from Josh Segarra, who seems so bored throughout this entire thing. I mean, there isn't a single emotion throughout him throughout this movie that seems like he's into it. It just, again, this is just a film that's so hard to talk about. It's so incomprehensible what you're watching. I don't really know what this was. I don't really know what the intention of this was. Maybe this whole thing is just a joke. I don't know. But, like, this is legitimately one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever seen, and I mean, I guess it's worth watching for that alone, but for me, I just really it just confounded me throughout the entire thing, and I couldn't believe what I was watching. I gotta give this one a D+. It's not one of the worst films of the year, but my god, is it strange. I mean, if you want something that's just really weird and out there, I guess watch this, but like, this is the definition of like an acquired taste, and I really don't know who this is for, but it's definitely not for me, and not something that I really would recommend at all. This is just, I don't know what the hell this was. And the last one we're going to be talking about is the Christmas Chronicles 2 or Part 2. And again, unfortunately, this film just did not really do it for me. There are things I do like. I don't think it's terrible. You know, I think the performances here are still really strong. Kurt Russell is still really good as Santa. He's still just as fun and charming as he was in the first one. And Goldie Hawn has a lot more to do this time around. And I thought she was really good. Like, she is definitely a more stern Mrs. Claus than you're expecting, but she's a Mrs. Claus that really does care a lot. And I think she does do a really good job with that. And Darby Camp is still really good, too. She's turning out to be a really talented actress, and I think she is maybe even better in this film than she was in the first one. I really did like her quite a bit here, and I think that she was definitely quite a lot of fun in this film. I enjoyed her performance here. Really, it just comes down to the story, which is just so lackluster here. Everything about this, it just feels like a very forced conflict where you have, you know, in the North Pole side of things, you have this character of Belsnickel, who used to be an elf, but he ended up being a bit more, you know, trouble than some of the others. He found him, you know, he always got into various situations. He always got himself into problems, and so because of that, he is turned into a human, and now he's like vowing revenge on Santa, and it just, it's so forced, and it's not just because of the character, it's also because of Julian Dennison's performance, who I normally do like, but here, I just really thought he was miscast here. I just did not think he did a very convincing job at all as this character, and so that just didn't really work for me either, and I just wanted to be a very lackluster villain, and the film wants to act like this is this big conflict, so much is on the line, you know, the North Pole could be destroyed if Belsnickel gets his way, but you just never really feel it, mainly because his arc is just so rushed. It's like this 3-minute monologue, where this 3-minute exposition dump scene where, like, they explain everything to you about him, and it's just not enough. It really is just not enough for his character. Like I said, his story just feels very cliche, and it just never really worked for me very much at all, and just the mission itself, I just was not very invested in. But then, adding on to it, you have Kate's storyline as well, and that was one of the things that worked so well in the first movie, is the storyline of her getting over the death of her father and her sort of, you know, realizing that, well, you know, that she needs to be able to move on from him and getting along with her brother more and things like that. It was a really heartwarming story. The heart in this film is really just not there. It feels far more manufactured. It feels a lot more forced here, and it's really just a cliched story of, oh, now mom's got a new boyfriend, and oh, I don't like this new boyfriend because he's not like, you know, dad used to be, and just, we've seen the storyline done a bunch of times before, and Tyrese Gibson isn't bad in the role or anything. It's just, it's not only that it's a forced conflict, it never really feels like it gets the focus that it really does deserve. It just feels so one note, and it feels like Kate goes through a journey that, like, we're expecting her to go through. Like, it's not a very unpredictable journey at all. It's very cliched. There really isn't anything that different about it, and that's, I think, what was so disappointing about this film, is just the magic and the fun is just not really there. The first film did a really good job of doing something really different, really subverting your expectations, giving you a Santa that's far more untraditional, and because that, it was able to really do something creative, something fun, and that's just not really here in this film. It goes in a very generic direction, and I just don't think the film really worked very much at all. It's also very much overlong. The film is almost 2 hours, and it absolutely does not need to be. I mean, there are a lot of moments in this film that I just felt did not really need to be here, especially this one really weird, like, time travel sequence where Santa and Kate, they end up in the 90s, and there's this, like, 15-minute airport sequence, and this entire sequence felt like it could have been cut out of the movie entirely. There's this scene where, like, Santa has to stall, and he starts doing this, like, elaborate musical number, and it comes right the fuck out of nowhere. I don't know what it's doing in this film, but it's here, and I don't really know why it's here. I don't really know what the purpose of it is. It doesn't really fit in this film very much at all, so I don't think they do a very good job with that. And then to top it all off, they do this very forced thing where Kate, you know, kind of like, they try to go through the lesson a bit more of like what Kate's gone through, and it just doesn't really work very much at all, so I don't think they did a good job with that either. The new characters also, besides Belsnickel, just really wasn't doing it for me. I didn't hate Jack as a character. Jazir Bruno, he's not bad in the movie or anything, but again, it's just another thing that feels very much like just kind of forced. Like, oh, we need a new character. No reason, we just need a new character. Judah Lewis, I guess, wasn't available, so we'll just throw him in there. You know, he's gonna be the, like, stepbrother to Kate or whatever, and it just didn't really work. It never really works at all. It doesn't really feel like he has much of a purpose here really ever in this film. And again, I still do like Kate as a character, but Jack, just, there's no real reason for him to be here other than just they needed another kid, and that was really kind of it. The humor even as well is not nearly as sophisticated as it was in the first film. It's way more on the kiddie side of things, and because that, a lot of it just really did not work in this movie. I was not laughing a lot in this film. I will say the first like 15 to 20 minutes I wasn't disliking it, but once the plot actually started out, it just really was not working for me. The finale, especially the way that they defeat Belsnickel, I thought was just so anticlimactic, and it just was something that I was not really enjoying. And again, I don't think this film is like a total bore throughout or anything. There were some moments that were admittedly very creative. Like, there's this group that Belsnickel creates, and I thought they actually did some kind of fun things there. I did appreciate that, but like, aside from that, and the cinematography as well is definitely a step down as well. The effects just do not look very good in this movie, and they did not look bad in the first one, but here they really don't look that great. They're not very convincing. Just overall, this is just not a film that really did much for me at all. It's a very unnecessary sequel. It does not, I think, do a very good job of furthering the story. Again, the 3 central performances are still really good, but like, aside from that, there just really isn't that much to this film. The film also has one of the most cheesiest endings that I've seen in a very long time. I legitimately don't think they could have ended this movie in more of a saccharine and vanilla way than they did here, and it just really did not work. So, C for Christmas Chronicles 2. I really was pulling for this to be good, but unfortunately, it just is a very forced and incredibly unnecessary sequel that I just don't think really worked very much at all. And with that, guys, that's it. Those are all the Christmas films that I ended up watching in 2020. I wish I was more positive on some of these. The majority of them I very much was not, but you know what? I was able to finally review them, and that's good because I really wanted to be able to do that. Other than that, guys, though, that's it for this video. You know, of course, let me guys, well, you know, how are you enjoying your Christmas so far? All that kind of stuff. Have you seen any of these films? What did you think of them? You know, I would love to hear your thoughts on all that stuff. I have a lot more content coming this week. You know, we are really getting down to the end of the year where there's a lot of films coming out all at once, and I'm trying to review as many as I possibly can. There's not as many as there usually is, but like, this weekend especially is crazy, so like, I'm really trying to get as much as I can done. But either way, guys, for this video, hope you guys enjoyed it. Happy holidays to all of you. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.